I am here with Chris Schwarz, who I am not going to attempt to introduce. If you don't know who he is, you haven't been on the internet and a woodworker. If you have been on the internet and a woodworker, I appreciate you for only surfing finewoodworking.com. But that changes now. Chris, welcome to this bonus episode of Shop Talk Live.
Hi, Ben. It's good to see you again, man. It's been too long.
Yeah, it has been. Last time I think we hung out was, we've run into each other at events, but at the release of the Studley DVD at Woodworking in America, 4 years ago?
Yeah, it has been too long, so that's been years.
Yeah, well, you're going to be at Fine Woodworking Live.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. But, we don't need to only talk about what's going to be happening at Fine Woodworking Live. I thought we should actually try and pick the brain of the great Chris Schwarz. And the problem with that is you are probably the most open and published woodworker of possibly all time.
What do you mean by open?
You don't have many secrets.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't have any secrets.
So how many books have you written now?
5, 6, or 7. I don't know. I should know, but no, 5, 6, or 7, I think. Let's say that.
Okay. And between 5 and 7 books, and you blog daily.
Yep.
And so you've got that going on. You also you're a publisher, obviously, for Lost Art Press, and you publish books by a lot of people: Matt Beckford, Chris Beckford, anybody and everybody, right? But
absolutely,
your techniques and your knowledge has been widely shared. But I'm really, really wondering, in there's got to be something that you regret, be it a project or not a book, but, a technique that you say, I wish I could take that one back.
Oh, God, no, this podcast would go on for an hour. You haven't dug back deep enough into the early days of my magazine writing. I did... we used to have to do like 17 projects in an issue when I worked for some other magazine. And so we would end up, doing whatever. And I ended up carving bears that looked like pigs and making puzzles that had squirrels in a tree. We edited a piece called Alien on a Swing, and you're just going to have to look for that yourself. I'm not even going to tell you what that was about. But no, I have.
Is it safe to Google Alien on a Swing, though? That's the question.
Safe search, Ben. Safe search.
I don't know what that means, but okay. So besides that early stuff, you're a man of many opinions, though. So there's nothing that you're like saying, I really wish I never went there in this book, or in just silly projects, or.
Well, it's mostly silly projects. We all change as we get older, and I'm not the same woodworker I was when I started when I was 11, or when I took my first woodworking class in 1993, or when I started as an editor. I'm a very different person, and I hope that I'll be a different person in 10 years. Yeah. So we all change. I just read Peter Follensby's, or just edited Peter Follensby's new book, and he kind of opened my head like a can opener on several things that I hadn't thought of, as far as like the order that you plane stuff when it's on the bench. Mm-hmm. And so that's I'm always gonna evolve and keep moving, and that keeps the internet trolls clawing at my heels the whole time. Yeah. I'm saying that I'm inconsistent or whatnot, but I'm constantly looking for something better, and I don't ever think that the door is closed.
Do you ever find that I know for myself, when I go to do a video with a woodworker, we're not working with a bunch of hacks, same as you're not working on books.
Garrett hack.
Well, okay, all right, there you go. Well played. But you're not working on books with people whose knowledge is impeachable, we'll say. And I'll be at a shop and say, this is the best way of doing this thing ever. I'm amazed by what I'm witnessing.
Sure.
And it changes my woodworking mind. And then all of a sudden I go back home and I'm going, crap, I need to get a slot mortiser, or I need to get this, I need to get that. Do you ever find that as you're working on projects, you change your mindset and it really screws up your woodworking journey?
Yes and no. I mean, when I'm working on a project and I'm working on a book or an article, I'm pretty well worked out the way I'm going to do it, and I'm going to repeat it 5 or 10 times before I actually document it, before I actually commit to it. But you're right. Like when I was working with other authors as a magazine editor and doing what you do, I would go to, people like Troy Sexton's place or these guys who are really, I was playing way above my station and learning some amazing stuff and doing the exact same thing, coming home, drinking a beer, and unfortunately ordering something. Is what I do. I was like, I've got to have this because this guy showed me this, and I saw a guy bolt 2 table saws together, and I almost did it as a way to cut tenons. And so I've seen a meat grinder, a table saw converted to a meat grinder. I've seen some shit, but
apparently we're a table saw converted into a meat grinder, not a meat grinder converted into a table saw. What? That's
no. It was this really fancy General table saw, and he had installed a meat grinder on top of it. He also hunted deer, and so it ran off of the arbor, and so he would with a chain hoist lower the deer into the meat grinder, and then the venison sausage would come out, not the dust collector, which
all right.
I know that would be just I wish. But, it was. I've seen some stuff, man. It's not like it's like Vietnam in reverse.
Man,
the stuff.
Woodworking publishing in the 80s. Or 90s,
no,
probably early 90s.
How old do you think I am?
I don't know. I'm leaving that one alone. So, all right, besides the horrible things that you've witnessed and had to work your way through, you along the way you decided to take on toolmaking because obviously there's nothing more of a money pit than running a publishing company. Probably, you thought toolmaking would be the next adventure. What you guys are working on? Lump hammer, some dividers. What else is coming out of Crucible Tool soon?
We're just finishing up work on a card scraper that I know everybody on the internet's rolling their eyes when I'm about to say this sentence, but this card scraper shape is just so far superior to anything I've ever used. I can't believe no one's done this before. And it's a very simple tool, but done very well, and water jet to an exact shape. So you don't have to grind it to an exact shape. And so we're just finishing up some work on that. And that'll be really cheap, inexpensive thing for people to try. And of course, we're also going to give them the drawing so they can grind it themselves if they don't want to buy it. But this card scraper was the result of a lot of research back into the history of card scrapers and finding out that they were sold as rectangles for you to shape them the way you were supposed to. They're not supposed to be rectangles. And there are also a bunch of other English accessories from the 18th and 19th century for scraping that work, but not with rectangles. And so it's been, a research journey to find this, where the source of this was from. But we'll see. It's pretty cool.
So, I mean, one thing that amazes me about what you do is everything is based on historical research.
Yeah,
and that informs your modern day woodworking. You're somebody who uses a table saw and a joiner and a planer and all, and so you're not afraid of machinery and power tools. You celebrate them, but
sure,
you still go back and research whether work holding devices of the 16th century. What was the?
We've gone back to Roman times.
Yeah. Okay, so if you could only research and write or just which would you do? I love hypotheticals. I love weird, inescapable hypotheticals.
It could happen, like if I get all my hands cut off or something. I would absolutely be a builder, and that's in my blood. It's what I wake up every morning thinking about doing. But the reason for the silly, crazy research is that it's like visiting, another country or an alien civilization. We are the Neanderthals and the primitives when it comes to working with wood, because 200, 300, 1,000 years ago, everything was made from wood and little bits of metal. So those people knew way more than we do. And it's just kind of hubris to ignore it.
Yeah.
It's hard to find, but it's always results in some really valuable information as a starting point. I mean, we're using very modern water jet technology to cut these scrapers, and we're using polishing equipment to create the bright finish that has never been used in a historical sense. But it's finding the core, finding that little bit of good information is you're not going to find it just in the shower looking at the soap. It's in the books. It's in the past.
Well, so your thirst for woodworking historical knowledge is not necessarily about history. It's about being a better woodworker or finding new and better techniques.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that I'm mining them. I mean, they are way smarter than all of us put together. And, you're sitting on the shoulders of generations and generations of people who did it for a living and were 2 weeks away from starving when they did it. So they had to, be really efficient. But this isn't about, wearing puffy sleeves or being a reenactor. All that stuff is really cool.
If that's what you're into.
Yeah, if that's what you're into. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm not going to judge.
Yeah.
But gosh, people wear underwear when you do that. I mean, wear modern underwear. I don't want to know if you're circumcised. And I've been to too many living history museums and seen too much sweat. And finding out if the guys, no, you can't put this on the internet. I'm going to stop right here before we start talking about circumcision.
Yeah.
Oh, I just did. But it's informing modern woodworking. I mean, that's what I'm about. And my work doesn't reflect, I hope, doesn't look like it's old. I mean, I'm trying to look to the future with my designs and where I'm taking, my stick chairs and stuff like that. So I'm trying to make it for a very contemporary audience.
What's been the biggest aha moment in your research? Like immediately, I think you're discovering, air quotes for the listeners, the Moxon vice, or discovering the misinterpretation of the Moxon vice, or this new card scraper design. What's been the biggest? Oh man, why haven't I been doing that for my entire woodworking career now?
For me, it has to be building an 18th century French workbench. I had been working on crap. I'd been working on doors, on sawhorses, and I had been working on basically a Olmia copy. Mm-hmm. And that's what everybody had and everybody aspired to. And then when I built my first, what people call a Roubeau bench, but that's not really accurate. When I built that, it absolutely changed the way that I looked at handwork and simplified a lot of things that were very difficult and didn't make any sense and were very cumbersome. So that bench, which I use every day, is really was the first big aha moment and probably the spark that led me down looking at everything. That's like I said, okay, these people are really fucking smart.
Yeah.
Let's go see what they can tell us.
So what inspired that? Was it you trying to make the $175 workbench, or what led you down that road? That seems so natural to you now.
It does seem natural, but it wasn't at the time. I was carving a squirrel one day and trying to fill that magazine. Yeah. No, it was a funny story, I think, that I was trying to figure out why my workbench, that $175 workbench, was still a great workbench, and I still have it. It frustrated me at times. And there are some really great books out there about different forms of workbenches, but not a lot about how to use them in a very efficient manner. And I was visiting Joel Moskowitz, Tools for Working Wood, and we were sitting in his apartment, and he was showing me the Roubeau folios. He had a reprint from 1976, and that is a burn on him because I have the 18th century versions. But he was showing them to me, and all of a sudden, we were going through them page by page, and all these fancy French lads were shown, and they were solving all the problems that I was having in these drawings.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap. And so we got to plate 11, which is, one of my favorite plates. And there were the plans. So I went home and translated the section, and went to town. And that was it. So you can blame Joel Moskowitz.
I don't know. A part of me says blame whoever taught you how to speak French. Because if you didn't know how to speak French, none of this would have happened.
Yeah, that was before Google Translate or anything. And so it was ancient French, and my wife speaks much better French than I do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we worked our way through it manually with our old French dictionaries. And so it was very difficult, but it was so worth it. I mean, it was such a rush.
Yeah.
And it still is. You still find that stuff.
Do you have a similar story about the Roman workbenches or anything in that book, which I can never think of? Work holding devices. What was the name of that book? I've got it.
Yeah, that's why it hasn't sold very well. Yeah. It's called Ingenious Mechanics.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Thanks. And that wasn't a plug. You pulled that out of me. But it was. That I got to actually hold the oldest workbench. I lifted it up, and it was like from 187 AD that had been thrown down a Roman well. And seeing the tool marks that were on it, and seeing how it was made, and the mortises, and getting to touch this thing that was 2,000 years old almost was an amazing rush. And then building it, and then getting to work on it, and learning that. What that bench taught me is that you don't always have to stand up to do everything. Mm-hmm. It's sometimes extremely efficient to sit down and work, and you get to use your body in different ways. You are a much better clamp than Ben Strano, and or maybe you do know. I mean, that's why you need to talk.
There's a lot of clamp to go around. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, probably your nickname in high school was the clamp Strano.
We're gonna leave high school nicknames out of this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
so it was that. It was just figuring out that before modern benches, most people sat down to work because they were tired, and it was a much more efficient way to work.
Was that book a fun book to research? Because I mean, you were actually in Europe roaming around with Narayan, right?
Yep, we went to Naples, and then I went to Germany for that, and did some research in the UK as well. How do I get to do that? Usually it's by funding. The funding comes from teaching classes over there. So whenever I teach, I try to tag on a few days to go somewhere else. But sometimes it really pays to go to the source.
Yeah.
That's what I learned when I was a newspaper journalist is, you don't trust, you have to check it out yourself. Even if your mom says she loves you, you need to check it out.
Do you see yourself doing more dedicated research trips or?
Yeah. No, I'm going to Ireland in the fall for another book that I'm working on, and it's about Irish stuff. Sneak preview
here first, people.
Yes, don't steal my Irish idea. So I'm going to Ireland and going back to Wales and going to Devon, mostly for some chair research. Mm-hmm. To further that, there are some big holes in the historical record that I want to fill. I love to do that. So
you are on a chair kick. Are you done with flat work? Is it boring to you now?
No, this right here.
Oh.
That is a huge campaign chest that I'm building for a customer. I've been on a chair kick since the 90s, and I had just never felt the confidence. Well, chairs are so freaking hard. I mean, you have to be a genius like Peter Galbert to just, come out and be all awesome and stuff. And so I built my first stick chair in 2003, and it was horrible. And so I've been, for the last, 15, 16 years, studying it, but not really talking about it. I've just been kind of doing my own thing. It's cropped up here and there on the blog, and I've shown a few of the chairs, but it wasn't really until the last couple of years when I finally saw the fact that we could republish John Brown's book on Welsh stick chairs and do a biography on him, that I finally said, well, hell, I just need to pull my pants down and show what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And So yeah, chair kick it's been kicking for a long time.
So I mean, you talk about your first chair not being great. How many chairs in does it take? Because I made a Boggs chair in a class.
Oh yeah, I saw it. It was awesome.
Thank you. And I had nothing to do with that really. I was just
You were there.
I was there. I witnessed
like your first child's birth.
Yeah. yes. But I'm hesitant to try it again because I'm going to fall flat on my face. I know it. And I do have to tell myself, no, you're going to fall flat on your face no matter what you do. So you might as well get those out of your system now. How many?
Yeah, it's like bad dovetails. It's like everybody's born with exactly 640 bad dovetails in their hands, and you just have to like get them out. By dovetailing. Chairs are. I mean, if you do a really fancy Windsor, I know you did Jeff Lefkowitz's class. Is that right?
Yeah, him and David Duyard. Yeah.
That's a pretty high ranking chair. I mean, it's pretty awesome and pretty involved with all the setups and everything. But more of the chairs, what I do are kind of, people, drunk Irishmen gluing sticks together is sort of what my chair thing is. So if you pick,
Did you just announce the name of your next book?
Yes. I'm sorry. Oh my! Don't steal it. Don't steal it, Matthew Teague. But if you pick a simpler chair and work your way up to Peter Galbert levels, then you'll do much better. What I did when I finished, I took a chair class up in Canada so that nobody in the United States would know. Just did under the cover of Canadian bacon, and then came back and then immediately built another one. That was kind of, I think, what cemented it in my mind was not letting too much time pass. And that chair was so horrible that I couldn't, I've kept it for many years. I finally just gave it to a friend under the promise that he would never show it to anyone. And then but I could see where I needed to go from there and have built, I think I probably built about 10 chairs in that style before I felt like I was getting it. And then after that, now it's all refinements, and every chair looks awful to me. Just like every piece of furniture I build looks like crap to me. All I see are mistakes, but that's true with any woodworker except the people who work for your magazine. But I just see mistakes, but they look good enough to sell, and so that's good enough.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure I can quote Mike Pekovich when he said there's at least one drawer where the dovetails are tight enough to take a picture of.
And there's always one.
There's one. There's one. Yeah. But so, all right. So you were the type of person to just jump in and keep doing it. Your publishing background, where you were making you weren't making 17 projects for each issue yourself, but you were a part of many where you were forced to just keep building. Do you think that plays into your mentality of like, no, just jump right back on that horse and keep going?
Well, yeah, we had no choice. And I also came from a newspaper background, which was basically we were mandated to write 500 byline stories a year, or, you wouldn't.
Wow.
You wouldn't stay on staff. And so that's where everything started for me, is like, you have to do it every day. You have to keep at it. You have to, no matter what, even if it sucks. Because, when you're a newspaper person, every story you write is wrong the next day. And so you have to start all over again. And so I got very accustomed to failure and being wrong, being a newspaper writer. And I think that's where that attitude comes from in furniture work, is that you have to do the work every day. It's okay to fail. There's always tomorrow, and just don't end up with a stick in your butt. I mean, that's the motto.
I mean, it's funny because that actually plays into something I was thinking about, where in newspapers, and the same is true for social media, where it's very temporary. It's there forever, but the information is very temporary, and the likes or whatever is very, very temporary. Do you feel that social media has put negative pressure on woodworkers these days? Because you see so many people posting, like, honestly, Brendan's walking around behind you. Brendan's feed makes me depressed sometimes because he's so prolific and building at such a high level consistently. It's like, man, this, I'm never going to get to that point. And I'm constantly comparing myself to Brendan Gaffney's or Mike Pekovich's or, all sorts of people like that. And at times I yearn to be just an anonymous woodworker again, where like social media isn't a part of my thing. I'm just a guy in the shop. Does that ever play into your mentality? You are constantly publishing. You don't publish your social media every day, but you write every day. You're always doing something, putting yourself out there. Do you ever yearn to be just an anonymous woodworker again?
Yeah, sure. I mean, of course I do. It's once you let the genie out of the bottle, you sort of have to keep going. And, our Instagram presence and our Twitter presence and our blog is the backbone of our publishing industry, our publishing company. And so we try to show other people's work. And that's the other thing is just, I try to make social media not a completely narcissistic experience, all about me. And that's why our feed is as much about our authors and about what they're working on and not just my work. I don't always show all my work on Instagram or on the blog. But I do hear a lot of people who are, they get not upset, but they get depressed seeing everything on Instagram that is just picture perfect. But I promise you that the world's not that way. Not even if you're Christian Beckford or Garrett Hack, we all are going to have mistakes. And I think that you can prove this to yourself by just getting out of your own shop and going to a museum or going to a furniture show and actually looking at real high-end work up close. And it's good. And it's good to see what level you have to get to. But I've seen tear out on people's, tables that shouldn't, you would be surprised to hear their names. And they have little, they're human too. And so it's very encouraging and, it's medicinal almost to see it and say, oh, okay, well, this guy, everything looks perfect on his feed or in his book or in her blog. But really, she's got issues too, like we all do, because it's wood and we're people.
Yeah. Speaking of seeing things in person, you're going to be at Fine Woodworking Live, and people can see you and your issues in person.
Yes. Yeah, I'm bringing one of my chairs for you to mock.
I saw that. Now, Michael Fortune's going to be there. We're going to make sure he sits in it.
Yes.
You're
yes,
okay with
please
that?
do.
All right.
Oh.
Okay. You're going to be teaching your staked non-trigonometry method of building chairs. And you've been perfecting this for years and years and years, right?
This is something, there's been so many ways that people do compound angles, and I've learned every way from the very beginning. And this relates back to some research that I did at Old Salem and learning about how to do sightlines and resultants and trigonometry tables without numbers or math or trig or anything, because there was a pre-trig society and they did very high-end work. And so it was basically trying to build a way to get to that. How do we behave like them to make it easy for us? And I found a way that does it with almost no tools, no trig tables, no calculator, no numbers. And it allows you to copy pieces in a museum. It allows you to design new pieces without having to be fancy. People think that designing chairs is difficult, but getting the basic angles really isn't with this method. So I've been working on it for a long time, and I hope that people don't throw rocks at me.
It's a woodworking conference, so it'll be wood if anything is thrown at you. Well, are you more of your authors are going to be there? So Matt Beckford's going to be there talking about hand planes. Talk about one thing that you learned from Matt while working on his book.
Oh my God, Matt's book I had to beg Matt to do that book.
Really?
Oh, well, you have to understand, Matt and Peter Follansbee were my first two outside authors, really. And so I had to take them out to dinner. And then I found out that Peter Follansbee doesn't drink. And so it was
Why
really
does
hard
he
to
act
get him.
that way?
It was hard for me to get him drunk and convince him to kind of sign a contract. But I was at the very beginning of my career when we did those with Lost Art Press, when we did those books. So I had to like sort of beg them. And I'm glad they did. But Matt had come up with the way to think about moldings and execute them that was so different than everything I had ever read in the old books. And, I'm sure that his method, which is near perfect, using creating rabbets and creating chamfers to guide the hollows and rounds, I'm sure that's somewhere that's how they did it, because it's freaking foolproof.
It's gotta be.
Yeah, but because Matt's a bright guy, but no, he put it all together, and that was, and the real thing is like, how do we stretch out this one great idea into a book? And he did it because he included a lot of historical examples and how to mimic them. But gosh, that book really has changed the way I do moldings and changed the way a lot of people do them as well.
What about Christian Beckford? What was something that surprised you when you were editing his book?
Wow. Christian is exactly what Christian says. Yeah. There's no opacity to the man.
Okay.
He is just, and meeting him and getting to spend some time with him and reading his book is just like, well, no, this is Christian Beckford in word form.
It really is.
It is. And reading it, we did everything we could to keep the Christian Beckford, tone of voice and straight up kind of straight at you, no BS kind of thing. And so I was so happy that he could write like he thinks and teaches and builds. And that was the big, that was the joy in that book, was that it really is Chris distilled into this tiny vial. So
you were able to keep the essence of him, because I read it on a flight just a few days ago. And it really was like I was reading it in his voice. It really was like, oh, I know he's snarling that sentence.
There should be an emoji in there that's like, yeah.
If Christian Beckford had an emoji, what would that be? So what about Nancy Hillard? Nancy's going to be there. She's going to be talking about arts and crafts furniture. Are you working on something with Nancy right now?
Yeah, Nancy's working on a book for us on kitchens, and right now it's tentatively titled Kitchen Think, which is probably not going to end up that way, but it sounded like having a lisp and kitchen sink, but we'll stop that. But anyway, it's about trying to take our Lost Art Press approach to rethinking things that are assumed, and so it's trying to turn the world of kitchen renovation upside down and making you rethink remodeling or completely gutting your kitchen, which is a real wasteful consumerist approach, and showing how Nancy thinks about cabinets and designing kitchens and what she likes and what she doesn't like, and how to do storage that is straightforward, that is not, silly, that involves 1,000 little pieces of wire. So it's going to be a great book. Nancy's a fantastic writer, and is sort of in the Christian Beckford vein of, no flies on her. She's going to give it right to everybody. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think that's going to come out next year.
Awesome. So I'm going to let you get back to it, because you said that you were in the process of gluing up some chair seats for a class that you have coming up on Monday. But real quick, why did you feel the need to take on a woodworking school? I know you're not going to call yourself a woodworking school, but there's a lot of classes going on in your. Is it your home now?
We're moving up in July upstairs, so it's getting there. But it's the real truth answer. The real true answer, and I won't lie to you, is that when my friend Brendan Gaffney and Megan Fitzpatrick left their job, I was trying to create something that would help them make income, so that they wouldn't end up. I'm on my doorstep, or working at Woodcraft, or worse, working at McDonald's. And so it was never my desire to offer classes here, but it seemed a logical way to help them with their careers. And boy, the students, or whatever we call them, they love it and they fill up very quickly. And so it turned out to be a really good idea that I was just being pigheaded and resistant to. So it's working out well.
Do you see yourself teaching more? I know you've taken a step back from teaching, but do you see yourself teaching more now that it's easy to do it, considering you have everything all in one place? You don't need to travel. You could be with your family at the end of the night.
It is easier, and I probably will have, keep a limited teaching schedule. I enjoy it. It's important. It makes me a better researcher and woodworker, because I'm challenged by these people, because a lot of them are really smart and challenge what I do. So it's good. I just have to make sure it doesn't get out of control and take over. And because when I stopped teaching, I was teaching 18 weeks out of the year, and that's just crazy. That's like Amway, being on an Amway circuit. So I had to dial it back. And if I teach 4 classes a year, then I'll probably be happy.
That sounds like a nice balance. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us here, and
cool.
We'll look forward to seeing you. Huh?
Yeah. Can I ask you one thing? Can I ask you one question? So, my whole thing with coming to Fine Woodworking Live was, there's this big fear that you guys are just pranking me. It's like I'm going to get there and you're going to be like, you're not really invited, and put me in a dunking tank maybe, or short sheet my bed. I mean, can you give me any insight as to am I really on the list?
You're really on the list.
Just wish list.
Bring a broom. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Extra underwear.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we're on cleanup duty. But no, we're looking forward to having you there. It's a cool thing that we're able to do this now. It's amazing to me how people felt like it was the world caving in that you'd be coming to Fine Woodworking Live, but the publishing world is small. There's no need for anything to stop you from coming to our event. I mean, so of course, the second it became a possibility, we knew that we wanted you there, and we're really excited that you agreed to come. So thank you for that.
Oh God, no, I'm happy to be coming, and as I think people should find out that the publishing world is small, and we all know each other a lot better than it seems. I mean, we're all on the same side, which is trying to keep our jobs.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
trying to keep doing this for the rest of our lives.
Yep. Well, game on. Thank you again, Chris. And say hey to Megan, say hey to Brendan, and we'll see you in April.
Yeah, say hello to everybody there, and I'll see you guys in April.
All right. Still there, Chris?
I'm still here.
All right.
Yeah, I can hear everything, including the noise your stomach just made.
No, I just ate tacos, so I'm not hungry.
Oh, that is a different noise.